This is such a fantastic medium. In every negative, there's a positive, and of course, here we're seeing the positive effects of this tragic time, which is that we're all linked together through Limud Torah all over the world, and Zoom has become really a fantastic medium for meeting together and learning together. I'll just begin by saying that this SCA Day of Learning is dedicated in honor of our community's selfless medical professionals. May our learning merit the Refuah Shelemah of our dear founder, Stanley Chera, Shlomo Ben Shoshana, and all those who are ill. The topic that I want to talk about, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Yael Ziegler. I'm really just so moved by this day of learning and by all the learning that's been going on by Zoom over the last few weeks. I hope that you're all staying well, and please stay in the house, practice social distancing, especially the elderly. Please stay in the house, and that's the way that we're all going to together overcome this very difficult period. That, of course, and Limud Torah. And today's shir that we're going to talk about in the next half hour is about what we really consider to be the central part of the Yetziat Mitzrayim narrative, which is the 10 plagues. When I say it's a central part, this is a very long, continuous narrative. It starts in the middle of the 7th chapter of the book of Shemot, of Perek Zayin, and it goes all the way until Perek Yudbet, with only a brief interruption for the mitzvot of Pesach and Matzah and Korban Pesach and Maror at the beginning of Perek Yudbet. But other than that, it's an uninterrupted narrative. It's very long. It seems to be on some level pretty repetitious. And the question that I want to address today is why have 10 plagues? Really, I mean, it wouldn't have been enough to just have one plague. And certainly if the goal had been simply to take the Jewish people, to take the Israelites out of Egypt, then it's clear that God could have just wielded one plague against the Egyptians. And in fact, the plague of the firstborn at the very beginning of the story seems to be the destination that Hashem is sending Moshe to Egypt in order to accomplish. Look at what it says here in source number 1 in Shmot Perek Daled, Vayomer Hashem El Moshe B'lechtecha lashuv Mitzrayma re'ei kol hamuftim asher samti v'yadecha. When you go to Egypt, look at all the different wonders which I'm giving into your hands. Asitam lifnei Paro, do them before Paro. V'ani achazek et libo, etc. Skip ahead to pasuk Kaf Gimel. Va'omar elecha, and I say to you, Paro, Shalach et b'ni v'yavdeni, send me my son so that he can worship me. V'tima'en l'shalcho, and you refuse to send him. Hine anochi horeg et binecha b'chorecha. I am going to kill your son, your firstborn. And so at the very initial movement of Moshe down to Egypt, God already tells him, you are going to bring that final plague, that 10th plague against Paro. There's no mention of blood or frogs or lice or any of the other of the plagues. So we already have our eye on the 10th plague, and that of course only compounds the question, why do we need these first 9 plagues? What is the purpose? The purpose is clearly not only to get the Jews, to get the Israelites out of Egypt. According to biblical interpreters, and many different commentaries have weighed in on the idea and the purpose and the meaning of the 10 plagues, there are many goals beyond the pragmatic goal of getting the Israelites out of Egypt. There are educational goals. There are punitive goals. There are ideological goals. Indeed, what we see throughout these plagues is that these plagues demonstrate God's omnipotence, his power, both to the Egyptians and to the Israelites. These plagues punish the Egyptians and restore a sense of justice in the world. These plagues are about trouncing Paro, about destroying the notion of a pantheon of Egyptian gods. Think, for example, that when God strikes the Nile, he's not just striking the Nile, the source of Egyptian pride, he's also striking the Nile god, whose name was Happy. Think about the fact that when God brings darkness upon the land, he's not just punishing the Egyptians by plunging them into darkness, he is also trouncing that very prominent god of the Egyptian pantheon, who is called Ra, the sun god. And of course, these 10 plagues are not just about getting the Israelites out of Egypt, but they're about conveying these different ideas, these different messages. I want to focus a little bit today on the structure of the 10 plagues. I'm trying to understand how we create some kind of division, structure, and meaning in the 10 plagues, and see if by doing so, we can get to some deeper meanings in understanding this story. Now, when we talk about structuring the 10 plagues, I think most of us are most familiar with the idea that we mentioned in the Pesach Seder, but we also mention it in many different midrashim. It appears in a very early midrash in the Sifrei, and that is the division of Rabbi Yehuda, who said that we divide these plagues into 3 groups of 3, followed by the one climactic final plague, Ditzach, Adash, Be'acha, followed by Makat Bechorot. We are all very familiar with that division, and yet the question that I would begin with is, what kind of division is that? I mean, mathematically, that's a division that makes no sense, right? If you have 10 plagues, you're not going to divide intuitively into 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 1. Your intuitive divide would be like we divide the 10 commandments into 2 groups of 2. And what's interesting is that when we do divide into 2 groups of 2, we see that the final climactic plague in each of those groups are the only plagues that directly bring death onto someone. Dever brings death onto the animals. Makat Bechorot brings death onto the humans. And these are the only 2 plagues which are said to be brought about by God himself. Yad Hashem Hoya B'miknecha. And so what we see is that this division into 2 groups of 5 already gives us a certain insight into what these plagues are about. But right away, I get the sense that these plagues are about teaching the Egyptians that in fact only God controls death, right? Human beings do not control death, despite the fact that the Egyptians were very much believed that they did control death. The plagues are also about teaching the Egyptians that only God brings death, and God brings it when and how he is disposed to do so. So that's, I think, an immediate idea that comes to mind when we divide the plagues into 2 groups of 5. But another sort of intuitive division, I see that someone is chatting me, so let me see what's going on here. It sounds a little scratchy on your end. I will not move my hands. Okay. So another, I'll have to move my hands just to turn them off. Okay, so another possible division is division not into 2 groups of 5, but into what is the other mathematical division, which is 5 groups of 2. And by the way, that comes up in the Pesach Seder as well. It's based on a pasuk in Parashat Bikurim, which is what we base the Pesach Seder on, which is what we base the Haggadah on. And that is a pasuk in Devarim, Perek Kaf Vav, which tells us, Vayotzienu Hashem mimitzrayim, biyad chazaka uvizra netuya, uvimora gadol uveotot uvimoftim. God took us out of Egypt with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, and with great awe, and with signs, and with wonders. And the Midrash in source number 2 tells us, biyad chazaka shtayim, uvizra netuya shtayim, uvimora gadol shtayim, uveotot shtayim, uvimoftim shtayim. That each of the words in this pasuk allude to 2 of the different makot, and that these makot are meant to be seen as being divided into pairs. What are these pairs about? Well, Rabbeinu Bechai, which I didn't bring for you here, but Rabbeinu Bechai suggests that these pairs are describing the different targets, different areas that God targets in these makot. So the first two makot target the water, dam and svardea, blood and frogs. The next two makot target the earth, and that is kinim and arov. The next two target human bodies. The next two target the air, right? It's barad and arbe, the hail and the locust. And the next two are somewhat amorphous, darkness and death. What this idea, I think, comes to suggest is that unlike the Egyptian pantheon, in which it is clear to the Egyptians that each area of life has a different deity that controls it. That is the polytheistic notion of Egyptian theology. Our idea, the idea that is being conveyed here in the 10 plagues, is that there is one God, and he controls every area of human existence. The water, human bodies, the earth, the animals, the air, and even amorphous areas such as darkness and death. This idea is conveyed by dividing the makot into different areas, into different aspects of existence. One other point that I think that is noted here is that if you look at these makot and you follow these different areas, you start with the water, you move up to the land, you move up to human bodies, then you move up to the air where the barad, where the hail and the locusts are coming from, and finally you turn your attention to God. And so the makot have this movement that take us from the deepest recesses of the land all the way up to where we are focused on Avinu Shebashamayim. So actually, when we look at some of the different structures of the makot, we begin to see different ideas. Now, before I get to our structure, which is the most common one, I want to make one final point about a structure, and it's one that I think is really very striking, and that is the parshiot division, right? Did you ever notice that the 10 makot are divided into two different parshiot? That we actually read about 7 of the makot in Parshat Va'era, and we read about the final 3 in Parshat Bo. In my mind, this is a very disturbing, it actually, I find it's very troubling every year. We finish Parshat Va'era and we're in a cliffhanger, right? We haven't finished the story yet. It seems to be a curious division. If I were dividing the parshiot, I would be inclined to put all of the makot in one parsha. And I think that this is very deliberate. And the reason that I think that it's deliberate is because I think, well, 2 things. First of all, because it seems pretty clear to me that when we get to the end of Parshat Va'era, we are in the 7th Makkah, which is the Makkah of Barad, which is the Makkah of Hail. And that Makkah seems to be a climactic ending. Look at what God says to Moshe in source number 3, in Shmot Perek Tet. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Hashkim baboker v'yatzev lifnei Paro, etc. Look in Pasuk Yudalid. Ki bapam hazot ani sholach et kol magevotai el libcha. This time, I am sending all of my plagues into your heart. What does it mean, all of his plagues? It's just the plague of hail. So different mafarshim go in different directions. Of course, the plague of hail strikes at many different targets. It strikes at humans, it strikes at animals, it strikes at trees, it strikes at the produce of the field. Maybe that's what's meant by kol magefotai. Rashbam suggests that it's a combination of different elements. It's the element of water and the element of fire and the element of wind. However we understand it, it feels as though this is some kind of climactic ending at the end of Parshat Va'era. And what I want to suggest is that Parshat Va'era, which has 7 makot, is about punishing the Egyptians. God's punishments come in 7s in Tanach, and we are very focused on the Egyptians throughout Parshat Va'era. All of this changes when we get to Parshat Bo. Look at the beginning of Parshat Bo in source number 5. Hashem says to Paro, to Moshe, come to Paro, because I'm going to send another plague to him. For what purpose? Pasuk Bet, Lema'an tisaper be'oznei vincha uven vincha et asher hitalalti b'mitzrayim, so that you should tell your son and your grandchildren that which I did to Egypt. For the first time in the plague narrative, we are focused not on the past, not on punishing the Egyptians, but on the future, on telling Am Yisrael of these events in the future. Parshat Ve'era is about the past. It's about punishing the Egyptians for all that they have done. Parshat Bo is the parasha of Geula. It is the parasha of redemption. It's about focusing us on the future. And in fact, if you look at the 3 plagues which appear in Parashat Bo, they have something very significant in common, and that is darkness. Arbe covers the sun, Vatechshach haaretz, and the land is plunged into darkness. Choshech is about darkness. Makat Bechorot takes place in the darkness. We have left Egypt plunged in darkness. And as Yeshayahu says in Perek Pasuk Aleph, Ha'am ha'holchim b'choshech ra'u or gadol. The nation that was walking in darkness now see a bright light, and they move out of Egypt. Last one out has to turn out the lights, and they move towards Har Sinai and towards the land of Israel and towards this new period of redemption in which they're told to get up and spread the light of God into the world. Parshat Va'era and Parshat Bo, in my opinion, are divided very deliberately in order to draw our attention to 2 different aspects of the Makot. The part that is about primarily punishing the Egyptians, and the part that is about educating Am Yisrael toward their future. And now I want to turn our attention to our very well-known division, which I brought for you here in source number 6. Rabbi Yehuda Haya Noten Sivanim Betzach Adash Da'achav. We have this division of 3 plus 3 plus 3, and this is, of course, our best-known division. Now, where do we get this division? What is its purpose? What are we learning from it? And why is it the most common division? So I'll start by saying that it seems to me that the story itself divides the plagues into these 3 groups. And as the Abarbanel notes, and I brought it for you here in the Kli Yakar, just because the Abarbanel writes things in a very, sort of elongated manner, right? But the Abarbanel says, look at the beginning of each of these groups of 3. At the beginning, there is a purpose clause. It tells us what the group is trying to accomplish. At the beginning of the first group, right before the Makkah of blood, right before the plague of blood, we're told, Bizot Teda Ki Ani Hashem. And the Abarbanel says, this first group is intended to demonstrate God's existence. At the beginning of Makat Arov, we are told, Leman Teda Ki Ani Hashem B'Kerev Haaretz. This second group is intended to illustrate God's divine providence in the world. And at the beginning of the third group, at the beginning of Makat Barad, the plague of hail, we have another purpose clause, Ba'avor Teda Ki Ein Kamoni B'Chol Haaretz. The Abarbanel says, this third group shows God's ability to alter nature at his will. Now, the Abarbanel's approach, which I think indicates to us that, in fact, the Tanach itself is dividing these Makot into 3 groups. It has some difficulties. In other words, it's not clear to me why frogs establish God's existence, but mixed multitudes point to his divine providence. It's not clear to me why locusts are used to illustrate God's ability to alter nature instead of dam, right, the turning of the Nile to blood. But what I want us to see from this idea is that the Tanakh itself seems to be making this division. Now, to explain this division a little bit further, and there's a Sforno here that explains it in a different way, which for lack of time, but to explain this division a little bit further, I want to draw your attention to the Rashbam. Rashbam rather famously says that in these three groups, the first two makot come with a warning, and the third one comes without warning. So both dam and sfardea, blood and frogs, has Moshe coming to Paro and warning Paro. Blood and frogs are going to come if you don't send the people out. And of course he doesn't. But lice comes without a warning. The same is true about Arov and Deber. They have a warning. But Shrin, boils, no warning. Harad and Arbe, hail and locusts have a warning. But Choshech has no warning. The Rashbam is drawing our attention once again to the fact that there is an internal logic to this grouping. Rabbeinu, now I will say one thing, and that is it's not clear at all why the third makot of each group comes without a warning, and I'm going to address this in just a few minutes. But before that, I just want to relate to the Rabbeinu Bechaya here in source number 10, which I think he makes a wonderful observation where he says that the first makah, the first plague of each of these three groups has something in common, and that is that Moshe has to give the warning to Paro when Paro is standing next to his Nile River. And the second plague in each group has something in common, and that is that Moshe is told, go into Paro's house, Bo El Paro. And what Rabbeinu Bechai wants to suggest here is that these locations in which Moshe is told to bring a warning to Paro are striking at Paro's perception of his strength. The Nile and Paro's palace, they are symbols of his grandeur and his power. And so Moshe is told to go and tell Paro that God is going to bring a plague upon him precisely in these two places in order to strike at Paro's source of his pride, his joy, and his sense of his own invincible power. But the most striking element of these groups is not the common feature between the first plague or the common feature between the second plague in each group, but rather the common feature within the third plague. And in fact, we've already noted that each of these third plagues comes without a warning. But in fact, we have something else here, and that is what the Das Canaan says. Look at this magic box that I brought for you here. The three plagues seem to be linguistically intertwined and interlocked. Look at how you could read it horizontally. Kinim, Shchin, Choshech. And you could also read it down to up. Choshech, Shchin, Kinim. This is pointed out by the Das Canaan, who suggests that this interlockingness of the words suggests also that these plagues are interlocked in terms of their. In what way are they interlocked in terms of their idea? The third plague comes upon the Egyptians, their bodies, ba'adam uva behema, on the bodies of the Egyptians, humans and beasts. They are struck as individuals rather than as groups. Lo ra'u ish et achiv, in the plague of Choshech, people did not even see each other. Each person contends with the individual nature of the plague that has come upon his body. Now, what is this idea? I think that this idea relates also to the fact that these plagues come without a warning. In my opinion, these three plagues come without a warning because these plagues are a stark reminder, an experience of human mortality. They are an experience of the way in which the body rots after death. Excuse me for that gruesome description. The kinim, the shchin, the darkness, which is also a description of death. These plagues are meant to give the Egyptians a sense of their own mortality, and they come without a warning because that is the way that death comes. Egyptians may have delusions of grandeur, but these plagues come to tell them that in fact, eventually, God will determine when their death will come, and death will eventually overtake them. Don't forget that Egypt is a place of arrogance, that Egypt is a place which is defined by its sense that it has defeated death, mummification of the body, the bid to preserve their body, to bury humans with all of their worldly possessions on the assumption that they can and have outwitted death, that they can control their own destiny. This is what God is battling here in these plagues. It is for this reason that they're given this experience of feeling intimations of their own mortality. And let me draw your attention back to this magic box. Look at what exists. Look at what appears right in the center of this box. I think some of you have already seen it and noted it. What's in the center of the box? The Nachash, the symbol of Egypt, the snake. We know that the snake is a symbol of Egypt. It's a symbol of Egypt in the Egyptian death mask, in all sorts of Egyptian pictures. It's a symbol of Egypt in Yirmiyahu, Parak Mem Vav, Kolak Hanachash Yelech. It is a symbol of Egypt in the sign that Moshe and Aaron do before Paro when they throw the staff to the ground and it turns into a snake. It is a symbol of Egypt because the Nachash in Gan Eden is a symbol of Egypt. The Nachash in Gan Eden says to the woman, eat from the tree of knowledge, lo mot timutun, and you will not die. What the Nachash is saying to Chava, what the Nachash is saying to the woman there is, if you only make these technological advancements, if you eat from the tree of knowledge, you can also eat from the tree of eternality, of immortality. And that is the danger of being part of a prosperous society. That's the danger of being part of a river society. Gan Eden's danger is Egypt's danger. And the sign, the symbol of that danger in Gan Eden is the Nachash. These plagues send the message to the Egyptians that humans cannot outwit death, that if you defy God, you will be expelled from the Garden of Eden. And so God hurls this third plague at the Egyptian individual in order to convey to them that with all of the success of their society, with all of their sense of invincibility, that they have outwitted death in the end, only God will control death, and only God determines who lives and who dies. I want to conclude this shiur because I see that I have only 2 minutes left with one final idea, and that is that the elusive quest for immortality, that is not something that is only found in Egypt. All of us want to attain eternal meaningfulness, and the Tanach tells us that that meaningfulness may be found in the quest for serving eternality, for serving God. Humans can outwit death by intuiting our lives in something eternal. Ve'atem hadivekim v'Hashem Elokechem chaim kulchem hayom. I wish you all continued limud Torah, good health, social distancing just for the moment, for the purpose of eventually coming together for Refuah Shelemah. And I wish you all a Pesach kasher, sameach, and bari. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to send me questions and comments. If you'd like this source sheet, Yael Ziegler at gmail.com. Thank you very much.